Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, in this today's video, with this weekend being the opening round of the Formula One World Championship for 2024. This is a preview to the probably the most potentially could be the most boring. No, it's joking. It's joking. It's probably not going to be boring, but anyways, most lamest and to be honest, season preview for the Formula One World Championship in 2024. So of course last weekend we did there was pre-season testing, obviously at Bahrain, 3 days of it, which I'll cover off also in this video. Also running through all 10 teams and how they went last season, and also do my prediction as well, and also during which I'll summarize on the calendar as well. So there's probably only one question really that is to be read, and that is who's going to stop Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Who knows? We'll find that out over the course of this season. But let's start this season preview and straight up, and we'll start off from the bottom of the Constructors' Championship last season up. So of course we start off with Haas, with the Haas F1 team. Who have retained its driver lineup. Those words are going to be repeated over and over again for the course of this video, because basically there's been no there's basically been no driver changes, pretty much. Well, pretty much from last year. The only thing is RB, basically, with Ricardo being in. But they retain the driver lineup of Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg. And of course they of course finished at the bottom of the pile with only 12 points to their name. The best finish of a sixth place finish that came from Nico Hulkenberg, but it only came in one of the sprint races at Austria. And then afterwards, obviously, Kevin Magnussen with his three 10th place finishes at Jeddah, Miami, and Singapore. But there was one highlight for them with the front row start at Canada for Hulkenberg. Which was pretty much their norm. From what I've heard, pretty much what was their norm for last year was basically good in qualifying, bad in the race, which all boils down to the well-known problems that they've had with managing their tires, which is something I don't get, which is something I'm confused about with Haas. I don't know if it's a driver thing or it's just their car. But it wasn't good in terms of tire management, and that was why they were good in qualifying, but not good in races, which is confusing. And they basically spent pretty much all preseason testing last weekend. Basically doing this thing because they ended up at the top of the pile in terms of mileage. They posted 441 laps, and they ended up being the ninth quickest car in the whole of testing. I know testing times, we don't need to worry about them, but it does matter to me in terms of where team is at before the season starts. They, of course, the quickest time that was posted by a Haas car was 131.686 by Hulkenberg, which I think it was on the third day. I think I'll have to check this out. It was on the third day. It was on the third and final day when he posted that lap, with Magnussen at the bottom of the pile in terms of the fastest lap time, with a 133.053, but I think he was more into probably long runs and basically race simulation runs, probably from both him and Hulkenberg as well. But I just had this feeling that Haas are probably going to finish at the bottom of the pile again. I have this feeling. I just have this feeling that they will be at the bottom of the pile again. Don't get me wrong. I think they'll be strong in qualifying. I think that these tire management issues and it's just gonna swamp them pretty much, and it proved in the sprint race, obviously with their best finish of the season, being sixth in the Austrian sprint race. They'll be strong in sprint races because the sprint races aren't that long. Let's put it that way. But in terms of a Grand Prix race, as we have to call it now, Grand Prix race, sprint race. Other than that, they're not going to be good. And qualifying the sprint races, I think they'd be sort of strong. Might hold their own, but in terms of over a Grand Prix race, with multiple stops and that, I think that will be pretty hard. They'll be hard hit, and I believe I think they'll finish at the top of the pile again in 2024. So I think it'll be another lone year for Haas, I think, this year. Moving on to the newly named Stake F1 team, Kick Sauber, which is a very interesting name, but not as worse as the next team I'll mention. I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, so basically, so you guys all know, Alfa Romeo ended their partnership with Sauber at the end of last season, off the back of, obviously, a couple of years ago it was announced that Sauber would become the factory Audi team when the team gets into 2026. Despite some recent rumors swirling around that project might be canned. That's what I've heard. That it might be canned. So yeah, but which I hope it's not. Which I bloody hope it's not the case, to be honest. But yeah, but as I said, but they retain their driver lineup. Okay, it just what if you're over 18, you don't need to worry about this. But you're under 18, please drink responsibly. If you're under 18, don't drink it. Don't drink at all. But take a shot every time I say the words. They say the words. Stuck with their driver lineup or something like that. Please just take a shot every single time I say it, because basically I say it for all 10 teams. Let's put it that way. But yeah. As I said, it was the worst silly set. It was probably one of the worst silly seasons from one's ever had, pretty much. But yeah, they keep their driver lineup of Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas. So yeah, and they had a dismal end to their partnership. End to the partnership between Alfa Romeo and Sauber. Off the back of what was a very successful first year under the ground effect under these regulations last year, they really suffered with the second year with the second year blues with this one. 16 points and only just bet Sauber to not finish bottom of the pile in terms of the Constructors' Championship. Undoubtedly in terms of qualifying, their best weekend was definitely Hungary. I mean, Zhou Guanyu P5, Valtteri Bottas P7. Yeah, and then in Bahrain, and then obviously several top 10 finishes. I mean, 7 of them throughout the course of the season. 4 from Valtteri Bottas and then 3 for Zhou Guanyu, including for Zhou Guanyu. He was actually I think it was in Bahrain, I think. I'm trying to remember. I think it was... Let me try and search this up real quick. I think it was in the first race of the season at Bahrain, I think. If I can remember. Yeah, it was the first race of the season at Bahrain. Was when he set the fastest lap, but but that bonus point didn't count, obviously, because he finished outside the top 10, which is a rule I think they should change and just allow the bonus point for anybody outside the top 10, to be honest, because then it'll add an incentive for someone who's probably, you know, who's had an incident early in the race, like 2-3 laps down, had an incentive to basically get something out of the weekend and basically, so that's what I think they should do. That and Qatar were the best finishes for Zhou, and then obviously 3 times, ninth place finishes for Valtteri, one in that chaotic race in Australia, and the other one at Catalonia in Spain, and the other one at the Losail Circuit in Qatar. Which was the in terms of the race results, the best weekend for Sauber, with 8th and 9th positions. So moving on to their preseason testing last week. What let me out of the box was Zhou Guan Yu just igniting the times. Ending up 4th fastest in terms of the fastest time over the 3 days. In terms of the fastest over the 3 days, he was 4th fastest. Only behind Sainz, Leclerc, and George Russell. And he did that on the final day as well. And what also left off the board for me was in terms of the team itself, that the team had that Zhou's time of 1:30.647. That allowed to have the Sauber to have the third quickest car throughout the testing, obviously, in terms of the fastest lap time of the 3 days. And then obviously in terms of mileage, they had together between Zhou and Valtteri, they together clocked 379 laps, which was the 4th most of any team with that sort of mileage. Those sort of things left off the board to me. I know what you're going to say. You can't take pre-season testing seriously, but as I said earlier, you need to judge off something for the start of the season. You can't just judge off last year, because most likely it's just going to, fail again. But I think for me, I think for me, there's a lot of things. I mean, Zhou. Some might argue that he in the next few years his seat might be under threat. So too would Valtteri. And now that Audi's gonna take over Sauber by 2026. I won't be surprised if I won't be surprised if in 2025 there will be more like Audi sort of. I know they'll be powered by Ferrari power units, but I won't be surprised there will be more like Audi logos and that next year, which I won't be surprised about. But anyways, but that's gonna be. I mean, if both Zhou and Valtteri both deliver like they did in preseason testing, and if that pace is true and that mileage to show that they are that their reliability can be up there all season, then there you go. Then there you go. That could save both Zhou and Valtteri in the long run. But the problem is if they continue to fall downhill, like last year, then there's the possibility because of course they got the likes of Teo Porcher, who won the Formula 2 championship. He's waiting in the wings. So if any one of those two fail, he's gonna take one of those seats there. And of course, speaking of Formula 1, there's a lot of drivers that are gonna be out of contract at the end of this season. So that is pretty much that. So that's I think a given really for that front there. But big things to come in for Sauber, not just through the Audi thing as well. But signs are positive after the preseason test. Now onto the worst team name in Formula One history. I'm glad that I wasn't the only one that thought that when it was first announced. Visa Cash App RB F1 Racing, or F1 team. That is, as I said, that is the worst name, and it doesn't make sense whatsoever. It doesn't make sense at all. Of course, we all know it was rebranded from AlphaTauri to RB. You call them RB, call them Racing Bulls, Visa Cash App RB. Some people, from what I've heard, I watched a bit of preseason testing, obviously, because it was on, because here in Australia, preseason testing was on Foxtel. Thank God, thank you. But I watched it a little bit, and they did. I did hear the commentators say RB, so I think RB will be the one that will be shown pretty much. So they've kept their driver lineup from most of the 2020 or second half of the 2023 season after Daniel Ricciardo replaced the struggling Nick De Vries, who has gone off to bigger and better things with the Toyota Gazoo racing team in WEC, which, by the way, also start their first race this weekend as well at Qatar, which I'm very excited about. But I'm going off topic. So they kept the lineup for the second half of the season of Danny Rick and joining with Yuki Tsunoda, which there's pressure on both drivers here because Ricardo. The question is, can he do regularly what he did at Mexico last year, and that was qualify at the front and finish in the points regularly. That is the big question. We all know Yuki Tsunoda can do it. He showed that in the second half of the season. He had 6 top 10s and a fastest lap as well to counter that effort. Well, it's unfair to compare Ricciardo's season with that because he missed most of the races due to obviously being signed mid-season to replace the sacked struggling Nick De Vries, and also suffering a broken hand in the incident at the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. So we can't really do that comparison in a way. We really can't do that comparison. But I think for me, there's pressure on both fronts here. I think for Danny Rick, I think that it's like Danny Rick is a rabbit, and that Red Bull seat is dangling like a carrot. I think for me, that's what my opinion is. That Red Bull seat is Sergio Perez. Does have a bad season. He and Danny Rick does do a great job with this with RB. Then that Red Bull seat, it's going to be his to take. In my opinion. That's pressure on him on that front. There's pressure on him in terms of Yuki as well, because because there's a guy who impressed in his free race appearance last year by the name of Liam Lawson, who would love to have a F1 seat full time, and it was, and I was so pissed off when Lawson, there was no seats for him to be honest, and I'm like, come on, at Singapore he eliminated Max Verstappen, 3-time Formula One world champion Max Verstappen, I should put it lightly, as you all know, out in Singapore in Q2. Yes, that's right. I did say Liam Lawson in a lower placed AlphaTauri knocked Max Verstappen out in Q2 at Singapore. Yes, I know the Red Bull cars were handling shit, but still, you can't. And with that, you can't get a seat for this year. That is just, it just pissed me off, to be honest, when it was announced that it was. I get Yuki and Danny Rick getting in there, but surely you need to have Liam Lawson in a seat next year, this year. And trust me, if Yuki has a bad season in 2024, he'll be ousted, and he'll be ousted, and it'll probably be a blessing in disguise also, because if you guys don't know, in 2026, Honda will have it in as announced a deal in 2026 with with the Aston Martin F1 team. F1 team. I think I have to check this. I think Yuki is not just a Red Bull Junior driver. He also is a part of the whole Honda racing thing. I think I'll have to check that. I think it said that he has support. Yeah, here it is. So it says here, for 26, he's also been supported by Honda ever since he was a part of the Dream Project Honda Formula Dream Project through 2016 up until his Grand Prix debut in 2021, and so on and so forth throughout his career. So if he does do a bad job, and he does get the axe, yeah, it makes sense for both parties. They have Red Bull promoting Liam Lawson into their team, and then Yuki Tsunoda, most likely, if Fernando Alonso, which I'll get to soon, it does get an offer from Mercedes to replace Lewis Hamilton, which I'll also get to in a bit, by the way. And he basically said, and Fernando says, I'm going to go to this team. That could be the opportunity Yuki needs to basically join a team that's basically partnered with Honda. It only makes sense in the end. It makes sense in the end. Or he basically, because I think also his contract runs out at the end of this year. I think I don't know. But yeah. But he did. Then we move on to preseason. Tale of two halves, really. Tsunoda was one of the quickest over the 3 days. 7th fastest with a time of 1:30.775, which was enough to put RB as the 5th fastest out of the test in terms of the fastest times per team. And then also you had Ricciardo at the other end of the scale. He done the most mileage for 210 laps compared to 157, and it was and RB was ranked 6th on that front, with altogether had 367 laps throughout the entire preseason test. So just to finish up on Visa Cash App RB F1 team, which I have to stop saying calling that name. Just say RB, but as I said, there's pressure on both counts. Danny Rick in terms of going from this team to Red Bull for 2025. For Yuki, he either performs and stays at the team, or it only makes sense. He does a bad job. He leaves, potentially goes to Aston Martin, who has a deal with Honda, and he is a Honda driver, and he goes there in the future, in a couple of years' time, in 2026. Who knows? But there's plenty of signs of potential really for RB during that preseason test. Speaking of potential, Williams. Let's go on to them. They did way better than expected in 2023 compared to 2022. Basically, about 99.99% of Williams's points were all scored by one Alexander Albon. Williams will probably very, very clearly would want to keep him pretty much. And Logan Sargent, obviously, I think I read somewhere. I remember one time during the end of last year, I remember on Facebook, I remember there was an article said that Logan Sargent, the total repair bill for in all these crashes that he was in last year was actually 3 or 4 times more than what his wage is at Williams. That's how much he. I'm hoping for his sake, for the Americans fans' sake, and for everybody else's sake, that Logan does improve. How much, we don't know. But judging by his preseason, I don't think that's going to happen. I highly doubt that's going to happen. Based on the fact that he was 19th quick, he was almost in the bottom of the pile, and he was very much the bottom of the pile with a lack of laps. Lack of mileage in the car, at the least amount of laps for Williams with only 138 laps compared to 161 from Alex Albon. But speaking of Albon, let's get to him. Obviously, he was the sole man. Obviously, he made it to multiple Q3s. He was not a regular in the top 10. Well, he did have 7 top 10 finishes, but he was a sort of a regular scorer in the top 10. And he was great, and he was great for. He was the lone hand for them pretty much there, and most likely he probably will be the lone hand for Williams this season too, most likely. Obviously. With both, of course, obviously the team did the least amount of laps of all teams in the test for 299 laps. And in terms of lap times, that Albon's time was 130.984, which was, again, on day 3. Which had Williams being the 6th quickest, with the 6th fastest time out of all the teams. But as I said, more than likely Williams most likely will be nowhere. I'm not saying nowhere, but Logan Sargent, he needs to pick up for his second season now. He needs to pick up the slack, because he knows that if he doesn't pick up the slack, then he might be ousted. He might. There might be a chance he might be ousted from Williams. It might be ousted for Williams and maybe replaced by another driver. I don't know. But in terms of Alex as well, I'm surprised that all the talk for this Hamilton replacement Mercedes either been Kimi Antonelli, who is the most talked about F2 rookie this year. Of course, coming off success at F3 and that sort of stuff. Or no, actually, no. He didn't even. He hasn't even raced in F. He skipped F3. He's gone straight to F2. There's talk about him potentially going there in 2025 as an 18-year-old, or is the potential for Fernando Alonso to go from Aston Martin to Mercedes. But I'm surprised that Alex Albon's not talked about more. I mean, he's been the guy that's carried Williams on his back all of last season, and he has not been talked about once in his Mercedes role. Sure, I mean, if I'm not saying that he might get a podium, which if in one of the craziest races probably he might with Williams, but if he does, surely that has to get Mercedes on their radar. Surely, in my opinion, surely that gets Williams on their radar. Mercedes, I should say. Gets on Mercedes' radar, gets him on Toto Wolff's radar. So I know they're talking about Antonelli, they're talking about Fernando Alonso. Surely Albon is, if Antonelli says no, I'm too young, I'm not ready for this big jump yet, or Fernando Alonso says no, I want to have success with Aston Martin, surely Plan C would have to be Alex Albon, surely. Either that and Plan D would probably be Esteban Ocon. It'll be the only chance for us to have 3 Aussies because we all know for Alpine. And speaking of Alpine, we'll get to them now. Speaking of which, we might as well get to them now. Probably the only way to get a third Aussie in Jack Doohan, the son of five-time 500cc world champion Mick Doohan, back onto the F1 grid. But yes, so as I said, they retain yet again. They drive a lineup. Yes, I know. Of Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, two of the Frenchmen there who went quite well actually in there. Of course, three podiums for the team last season. Two Grand Prix podiums and 1 sprint podium. And then a regular feature in the top 10, 11 top 10s for Gasly and then 12 for Ocon. Obviously their best results were best qualifying, best race were obviously fourth place in qualifying for Pierre at Spain, and then at Monaco for Esteban, and then in the race again, third was the best for both of them, which was Pierre at Zandvoort, and of course again third place for Esteban again at Monaco, which was probably the best weekend. One race weekend that Alpine did have, which was at the Monaco Grand Prix. I get the feeling based on their pre-season testing last week. To be honest, I won't be surprised if they fight it out with, let's say, with Haas and that at the back. Let's put it that way. Everyone would have thought, are they going to join Aston Martin and McLaren, which I'll get to those two teams in a sec, join those two teams, obviously at the pointy end, closer to the big three in Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. But I think they're gonna go. I think they're gonna go the opposite way. I could see them going the opposite way because they were because in terms of the fastest, in terms of all 10 teams, they were the slowest. Excuse me, hay fever. In terms of their fastest, so Ocon was the fastest out of the two with a 132.061, barely a tenth clear of Pierre Gasly with 132.149. And Esteban Ocon and Ocon set that on day 2 actually of testing, which was surprising to say the least on that. But yeah. And also in terms of laps, they weren't that completely up there either. I mean, they had, in terms of teams, they had the third least amount of mileage. They had 334 laps of testing combined out of the two drivers. The most out of the two was Ocon with 193. Pierre Gasly didn't do much mileage with 141. With the second least amount of mileage there. So if I were to guess, I think for me, I thought about for most of the off season that maybe there's the possibility that maybe there could be a group of three behind the initial group of big three, and that is McLaren, Aston Martin, and probably Alpine. Now I don't think so. I don't see that happening now. I think for me that they're selling positions down at the back. For me, in my opinion, and I might be proven wrong. But anyways, I think that's probably going to be the case. I think for me, yeah. So we're now halfway through all the teams. We might as well get to the calendar while we're here. So of course the first round of the championship is of course this weekend, the Bahrain Grand Prix. And then afterwards they go off to Jeddah, to Saudi Arabia at the Jeddah Street Circuit on March 7 to 9. And then afterwards they come here. At the traditional meeting at Albert Park for the Rolex Australian Formula One Grand Prix, which is March 21 to 24, but also the first day, no Formula One action there. Just same as last year, F1, F2, F3, supercars obviously, and obviously, yeah. Which, by the way, I'm hoping to watch more of F2 and F3 now that I've got Foxtel. Hopefully I do watch more of F2 and F3 because I want to watch more of that series while I'm there. Big change after Australia because at the fourth round, excuse me, the next stop is going to be Japan. Yeah, that's right. For the Japanese Grand Prix Suzuka, it's not going to be at the pointy end of the championship this time. It's going to be start of the season because F1 this year has started to do this sort of thing where they have all the Asian races at this part of the calendar, all the European races at this part of the calendar, the American races at this part of the calendar, Middle East races at this part. Yeah, I think you get the gist really. Yeah. And then on the 19th to 21st of April. By the way, Japanese Grand Prix the 5th to the 7th of March. 19th to the 21st of April, I should say. 5th and 7th of April would be the Japanese Grand Prix. 9th to the 21st of April is the triumphant return of the Chinese Grand Prix at the Shanghai International Circuit. More than likely, we might see no fans. You never know. We might see fans. We might not. Who knows? Yeah. Then afterwards they jet off to the other side of the world. Back to the first of 3 visits to the US in 2024, I should say. As they head to Miami for the Miami Grand Prix, as they race around Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Anyways, then it's the first European race of the season at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix at the Imola circuit. That is on June 17 to 19. And then after that you got the big one, the Monaco Grand Prix at the circuit de Monaco in Monte Carlo, which is on between June 24 to 26. Then afterwards they go off to Canada at Montreal for the 10th race of the season, which is on June 7 to 9. And then a couple of weeks after that will be the Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. Then after that would be the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring, which is held on June 28 to 30, and then to basically bookend the first half of the season would be the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, which is on July 5th to 7th. Hopefully an Australian wins that because basically that basically falls a week of the week of my birthday, pretty much my 24th birthday. Yeah, but then after a couple of weeks, they go off to Hungary at the Hungaroring for the Hungarian Grand Prix, which held on July 18 to 21. And then the final race before over in Europe the summer break, but over here it's winter. Will be the traditional Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. On July 26th to 28, and then, as I said, a full month-long break before they return to Zandvoort, aka Max Verstappen land, for the annual Dutch Grand Prix held on August 23 to 25. Then the Italian Grand Prix at Monza which is on August 30 to September 1. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix is pretty much swapped with the Japanese Grand Prix. Now it's going to be held in the latter half of the season, held on September 13 to 15. Then at Baku, then back-to-back street races. Not surprisingly, really. This time at Singapore for the Singapore Grand Prix on September 20th to 22nd. Then starts to fly. Well, basically the Azerbaijan Grand Prix started the flyaways. Then off to its second meeting at the US, this time at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, for the United States Grand Prix on October 18 to 20. Then the Mexican Grand Prix afterwards at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, which is held on October 25th to 27th. Then you got the Brazilian Grand Prix in Interlagos Circuit in Sao Paulo, which held on November 1st to the 3rd. Then you got the Las Vegas Grand Prix, the final one of the US races, which was actually one of the more exciting races I watched throughout the whole season. Actually, to be honest, which that will be held on November 21 to 24. Hopefully that's the same format, because I know for drivers it was a pretty dangerous with the low grip and that, but it basically turned into very exciting racing, pretty much. So hopefully they stick with that. Then the penultimate round of the championship at Qatar at the Losail circuit, which will be held on November 29 to December the 1st. And then the final race of the season will be held at the Yas Marina circuit, Abu Dhabi, which will be held held between December the 6th to the 8th. And then obviously you guys want to know which events use the sprint format. And it's follows. It is China, Miami, Austria, the United States. That's at Qatar, South Paulo, and Qatar all use the sprint race format, which is very different this year. They've changed it around again. So yeah, and I'll maybe the future video I might explain that a little bit more. So yeah, that's maybe similar to what I did with supercars last weekend. Hope I might explain that a little bit more about that. So yeah, yeah. So let's get into the juicy part of this. And that is probably the 5 best teams that are in Formula One at the moment, pretty much. First off, Aston Martin. Aston Martin now solely sponsored by Aramco. Okay, because Cogsand had parted ways, decided to part ways with the team as one of the main sponsors, and now Aramco is now the official sponsor. Now proudly renamed the Aston Martin Aramco F1 team. Now, have retained its driver lineup of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. So yeah, it was a tale of two halves, really. Fernando Alonso started the season like a freaking house on fire with a lot of freaking podiums and that. But the question was, like their good start was, eventually they'll teeter off, and they sort of did. But it wasn't like they went on runs of like Fernando Alonso scored like 5 podiums in the first 7 rounds and then didn't podium for the rest of the season, or didn't score any points for the rest of the season. They didn't do that. But they basically, after the initial start of the season, yes, they had a couple of more podiums, like I know Fernando Alonso finished on the podium at Interlagos at the latter half of the season, but they really didn't recapture that form that they had at the start of the season. And I'm really desperate. I don't see them doing the same thing this year. I think now all the teams know, and the same thing with McLaren with the second half of the season, because all teams know what they've got now, and also everyone's expectations on them is going to rise. Let's put it that way. So yeah, because I said 8 podium finishes last season for Fernando Alonso, including 3 second places at Monaco, Canada, and at Zandvoort, by the way, as well, and qualified on the front row twice at Miami and at Monaco as well. So yeah, so it was a pretty good season really for him on that front. I mean, 4th in the championship. He could have. To be honest, he could have perhaps maybe if he was more consistent in the middle part of the season and towards the latter half of the season, maybe could have pushed for 3rd in the championship. But it was not. But I don't think he would have caught pretty much anyway Perez and I don't think he would have caught Hamilton anyway for third in the championship, anyways. But you might have, who knows? But yeah, of course, Stroll, he was all right, to be honest. His best qualifying was third easily at Sao Paulo, Brazil, in the latter half of the season, and then his best races were, in terms of a Grand Prix, he finished fourth in Australia, which you have to put a big asterisk next to it, considering that there was freaking 2 red flags at the end of the race, and it was a freaking chaotic ending to the race, I can remember as well. Which hopefully this year that doesn't happen. But for a neutral fan like me, maybe it happens, but I don't think so. But it really we'll find that out soon. But yeah. But I think for me that all the pressure's going to be on Fernando, because we don't know. Eventually, that Mercedes 2025 contract offer will be offered to Fernando. It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when that contract's going to be handed to him, and it's a matter of does he sign it or not. Is he true to his word that he wants to help? When he first signed at midway through 2022, when he signed for Aston Martin in 2023, is he true that he wanted to help Aston Martin succeed, or was it just him trying to get himself back to a top team? And if he does, I see everyone being. I see this being an absolute splitter. Everyone will be like, most people, there'll be one half people will be like, oh, yay, Fernando. What a story this is. This is he retired at the end of 2018. 5 years later, he's now back at or 6-7 years later, he's back at the top team in Mercedes. Then the other half's gonna go, well, you said it, or you said basically, not in your words, but basically said you were going to be loyal to Aston Martin. Now you've just left them for a top team. So yes, that's the pressure is going to be on them now. I don't think there's going to be pressure on Stroll because, if Fernando Alonso does stay when Aston Martin begins its engine deal with Honda, then that's going to be a problem because Yuki Tsunoda, if he does get the sack from RB, then there's the possibility that he partners Fernando at that team, and then that's when he might be in trouble here. But you never know with that. So yeah, and then also their preseason testing, obviously they were okay. They weren't the best. They weren't like at the level they were last year, but they were sort of there and thereabouts in terms of both from a lap time standpoint and from a mileage standpoint. The team itself had the clocked the fifth most laps. 379, and then obviously thanks to Alonso with the top of 131.159, which was on, I think, also the third day. Yeah, also on day 3. Most of these fastest times were on the third day. Had Aston Martin in 8th, so it's a pretty good effort for them on that front there. But in terms of individual lap times for Fernando and Lance, they were pretty much in the middle of the pile, pretty much. Fernando was in 11th, Stroll was 15th quickest, and Stroll was pretty much up there in terms of the mileage, but not much of it really. Well, Fernando for not much, but it was still pretty much split between those two drivers also. So pretty much that's what I think. They're pretty much I think for me, Aston Martin. I think for me, for me, as I said, they didn't have didn't have obviously the preseason testing that they had last year, but I think still was a good preseason test day. pre-season testing for them, and hopefully it spurs them on. Hopefully, a car. Hopefully that Fernando can hopefully get him to maybe a Grand Prix victory, and that could hopefully convince Fernando to stay at the team beyond this season, probably that front. Good time as anything. Good time. To look at this team and this driver here. In McLaren and Oscar Piastri. So as I said, they retain. So if you guessed it, they retain their drama lineup of this man here, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. It was a season of two halves, really, for a series of serious two halves for, as I should say, for McLaren. They had a terrible first half of the season, absolutely terrible. And then when it came to the back half of the season, they were pretty much up there, pretty much the best of the rest outside of Red Bull. Pretty much, Red Bull were pretty much, and Max Verstappen were pretty much on their own at this point. But they were there fighting it out. Lando Norris, was fighting out with pole with Max most of the time. Look at the times he finished second. He finished second, 2, 4. He finished second. He finished second 6 times, which was the following: Silverstone, Hungary, Singapore, Suzuka, Kota, and Brazil. And then he was close to being on pole. I remember rightly at Silverstone because every time I watched the highlights of qualifying from Silverstone, I could just hear the roar of the crowd when Lando Norris stuck into P1, and then the sigh in the crowd when Verstappen knocked him off. I just said, at least they know now how I felt in 2014 when I was there, when Daniel Ricciardo, we all thought was going to be on pole for the Australian Grand Prix for about 5 seconds, and then Hamilton knocked him off at the last minute. Despite these things like 7 podium finishes, two of them in 9 podium finishes, 7 of them in the Grand Prix, 2 of them in the sprint, and also a fastest lap of the race to go with it as well. He was pretty much overshadowed by his rookie teammate, and I'm not saying that because I'm biased because I'm an Australian, but also realistically, he had two Grand Prix podiums. Some argue could have had a third at Silverstone if things had gone his way. He had a sprint race victory at Qatar, and also a fastest lap as well. So yeah, and also qualified on the front row as well for the first time at Japan, and he nearly got a sprint race pole as well, if you count it as well. If it wasn't for, you guessed it, bloody Max freaking Verstappen knocking him off. Gee, when I found out about that, I was just absolutely peeved off, to be honest. You could tell I hate Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Don't know why Daniel Ricciardo's thinking of moving there next year. But anyways, we'll have to see you in Australia in the top team. But and then their pre-season testing, I don't know where to gauge it, to be honest. I don't know where to gauge it. Piastri, he was the fastest. Obviously, he was in the top 10, and then Norris was basically in the middle of the pack. They didn't do that much mileage, to be honest. They were the 7th quickest team in the 3 days of testing. I don't know where to gauge them, to be honest. To be honest, if they fought it out with Red Bull if Norris and Piastri fought it out with Max for pole this weekend, for example, for pole and the podium this weekend, I won't be surprised if they have one car knocked down in Q1 and then another knocked down in Q2. I won't be surprised. I don't know where to gauge them, to be honest. But But yeah, so that's what I think for me in that case, to be honest. But now it's take that off, and because I'm not talking about it anymore. Well, or not anymore, but not talking about it now. Moving on to the big three: Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull. First off, Scuderia Ferrari. Again, retain their driver lineup of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Obviously, the big news that came out was that Carlos Sainz will be leaving that team as a sacrifice for one Sir Lewis Hamilton joining the team for 2024, which I'll get to that in a bit. But I did say pre-season last year with my preview last year. I wasn't surprised that they finished third in the Constructors' Championship. I wasn't surprised. Everyone said that they would go to the next level and seriously challenge for Red Bull, like they did for most of 2022. I didn't believe it, to be honest. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe so, and I was basically proven right, but not without things wrong, like Leclerc getting 5 pole positions, 8 podium finishes, 6 of them in the Grand Prix, 2 of them in sprint, and then finishing second place 3 times at Austria, Las Vegas, and Abu Dhabi as well. And then Carlos Sainz obviously winning a Grand Prix, obviously the only driver other than someone by the name of Verstappen and Perez to win races at Singapore, which was one thing which I wasn't surprised. It was one of those occasions where I wasn't shocked about it, but I was still surprised. But I was at the same time still surprised. Because obviously, and we all know how historically any team, we all know that Mercedes had been terrible. Even though they've been winning Singapore Grand Prix in the past, it's been notorious that that's the top team at Singapore doesn't go that badly. But I thought it would be different with Red Bull, considering their record with tracks dependent on aerodynamics and that, which obviously Red Bull's which is absolutely their specialty. But it was quite surprising that Ferrari ended up being the top of that, and obviously leading to Sainz obviously getting the win. I think getting the pole and the win as well, including 3 other podium finishes as well. Including 2 others in the Grand Prix, and then go with a sprint race podium as well. And Sainz looking ominous for them in terms of pre-season testing. I mean, second most miles out of any team. The only team that topped them is, of course, fellow Ferrari team in Haas, and then the fastest and then Sainz had the fastest time. And I think it was the only one in the test out of the 3 days that was in the 1 minute 29. So he did a 1 minute 29.921 on the final day, which was staggering. Which was actually staggering for a preseason test. So yeah. So and basically in the top of the pile, and then basically in the pile in terms of the fastest, Leclerc and Sainz are 1 and 2 on that front. And then of course Leclerc didn't do that much miles compared to Sainz, but still, second most miles, fastest team, the team with the fastest time in the preseason test. That is a pretty ominous, but pretty ominous really. But we said that a bit about Ferrari in 2019, and look how that ended up. So. You never know. As I said, you can't trust pre-season testing in terms of what the order will go with. Next up is, of course, the Constructors' Championship runners-up in Mercedes AMG Petronas. With a big change set to sweep through in 2025, with the announcement that Sir Lewis Hamilton will end his 11-year partnership with the Mercedes team at the end of this coming season. Obviously to retain their driver lineup, obviously with Lewis Hamilton, of course, it's obviously publicised as the last dance for him at Mercedes, alongside fellow Brit in George Russell. So yeah, how do I think they'll go with in Lewis's final season there? I'm sort of in the book to, even though in preseason testing they had the second they had the second fastest time, obviously with Russell with 130.3, with third, and then obviously Lewis being in the middle of the pile with 10th, and then obviously having having been down at the bottom of the pile in terms of mileage. Yeah, I'm leaning to the conclusion I won't be surprised they do what Ferrari do last year, and that is just go back down to third in the championship. I won't be surprised by that because and I won't be surprised they do try and end up, trying to at least win a race just for Lewis Hamilton to finish his time there on a good note before he goes to Ferrari. Most likely, probably the Ferrari contract. Most likely, maybe his final contract before he retires from Formula One. Who knows? But last year, of course, Hamilton he did show glimpses of his legendary best this year. Obviously, with the pole at Hungary. 6 poles, 6 podiums, 6 Grand Prix podiums, a sprint race podium, and 4 fastest lap bonus points, which is rare for him. With the 3 second place finishes coming in Australia, Spain, and the sprint race at Qatar. So pretty good season there. Finishing third, passing sweeping side Fernando Alonso late in the season for third in the championship. The same could not be said for Gorgeous George Russell, finishing 8th in the championship. He only had two. He only had 2 podium finishes and a fastest lap. Unfortunately, to go with that, he also had 4 DNFs throughout the season, which boggled my mind. Really, his best qualifying being second 3 times. Once in Australia, Singapore, and in Qatar. So both Asia, Oceania, races. And his best finish was third twice at Spain and Abu Dhabi. So he's looking to come back on that front. Do I think they'll win? Do I think they contend for race wins? Yes, most likely. Because I said they want it. They so desperately want Lewis to finish his time there on a high note. With hopefully with one last win. Hopefully with one last race win. But I think for me. Excuse me. It's going to be hard, really, to see. And I think George Russell, it's going to be a big season for him because we all know he's going to be the leader of that team now in 2025. Now knowing that Lewis is going to be gone from that team and going to Ferrari, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him to see if he can actually lead that team in terms of on-track results. I'm hoping so, but as you see, once again there will be all 9 of these teams going to be chasing one team and one team only, and that is Oracle Red Bull Racing. which retains again its driver lineup. Saying this for the last time, hopefully. With 3-time reigning, defending, undisputed Formula One world champion Max Verstappen, alongside his teammate Sergio Perez. So yeah, I mean, no doubt about it, they've been the best team, no doubt, since these ground effect rules came in 2022. No doubt about it, they've been the best. It's the perfect combination. I mean, of course, with Adrian Newey, the experience of him as a designer, we all know that. The management, of course, it's been highly publicised these last week or two with Christian Horner's accusations, which has been thrown out, by the way, which was reported, I think yesterday. I think I'm recording this. I'm recording this on a Thursday, so I think it was thrown out on the Wednesday. And then of course you got Helmut Marko there as well. And then obviously with Honda, probably the best engine. I think, in my opinion, I don't think they really had. From what I can remember, I don't think they had any engine failures with their power units. I know they did throughout the start of 2022. I know that. Because remember, they had that double retirement at Bahrain in 2022, and then Verstappen retiring out of the Australian Grand Prix in 2022 because of a power unit failure. But other than that, their Honda engines have part of the Red Bull powertrains have proven to be reliable and also fast. So I wonder if Red Bull might be regretting leaving Honda to go to Ford. I wonder. I might be wrong. We might have to wait a couple of years for 2026, but yeah, and that's one thing also I can't wait for is these 2026 cars. A genuine, design sort of car for 2026 would probably it's already been announced it will be unveiled probably at the British Grand Prix. It's similar sort of thing to 2021 when they introduced the new ground effect cars, similar to that. Just to see what the cars sort of look like, what this new regulation sort of be in terms of the new slimmer cars, just to save weight in that. I mean, Max Verstappen, can he repeat what he did last year? I won't be surprised if he does, to be fair. 19 race wins, three of those wins in sprint races, 12 poles, 21 Grand Prix podiums, 26 podiums all in total, 21 of them in Grand Prix, 5 of them in sprint races, and 9 fastest laps, which is insane. Which is absolutely insane, to be honest. Could he repeat that success and this lazy 575 points that he scored from last season? I won't be surprised if he does. Let's be honest. I won't be surprised if he does. As I said, they got the best. They got the best designer in terms of Adrian Newey. They got the best. They got the best car. They got the best engine. And above all, management, they got the best in terms of Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. So I won't be surprised if Max repeats what he did in 2023 and repeats what he did in 2022, and that's dominate the season pretty much. And won't be surprised if he has that number one on his car in 2025. I won't be surprised by that. Checo's an interesting one. We all know that Ricciardo is there waiting in the wings if they decide to pull the plug on Sergio Perez. Most of the times, I think even though he had 2 Grand Prix wins, a sprint win, and then obviously a couple other a couple of poles, podiums, and a couple of fastest laps here and there. The one thing that left me off the board, I think there was a run, I think, during the middle of the season. I think there was 4 or 5 straight race weekends in a row where he didn't qualify in the top 10 at all, and which is I would get if he was on another team. He's on the best team. He's with the best car, with the best car, best engine, best team, and he's not competing in the top 10 at all, which is poor effort. And if he does the same thing again, there's more than likely. To be honest, if he starts the season poor, I won't be. If his first start of the season is poor, I won't be surprised, to be honest, that get Ricardo, they sack Perez, get Ricardo win as a replacement for with the Visa Cash App RB team. Basically, they get in Liam Lawson for the second half of the season. I won't be surprised by that, to be honest. But yeah. And speaking of which, let's get to the preseason testing. I mean, they did okay. Did okay for their standards. I mean, stock standard. I mean, third most in terms of mileage, 391 laps. Not surprisingly, most of them were from Max Verstappen. And surprisingly, their fastest time was a 1:30.679. Which wasn't from Max. It was actually from Perez, from Sergio, actually. Which was on day 2, was it? Yeah, day 2, because he did do some laps on day 1, in day 2. He didn't compete. Was in the car at all at day 1. He was in the car for days 2 and 3 though. So yeah, because I think days 2 and 3. I think day 2 it was solely him that was in the RB20. But I think on day 3 it was both he and Verstappen that shared. I think day 1 was all Verstappen pretty much. Yeah, but yeah, so it was pretty much so it was an okay sort of preseason testing for Red Bull, but really the real season for them starts this weekend for them in Bahrain. Now let's get to the preseason predictions. Get to the predictions here. Let's get through the Drivers and the Constructors Championship really quickly. It's not surprisingly. It's Red Bull, drivers, Max Verstappen, Constructors, Red Bull. Let's move on. Bold prediction. So those two pretty self-explanatory. Let's move on. Bold prediction. And this one's going to be big. I think Fernando Alonso is going to win a Grand Prix. But that's not all. That's not all. Steak knives are included. Not really. And then during the week of that Grand Prix win, he signs for Mercedes in 2025. Just the ultimate betrayal for Aston Martin with Aston Martin. The ultimate betrayal leads them to a Grand Prix victory finally. Then announces, boom, I'm going to Mercedes. That would just be the ultimate FU to Aston Martin, pretty much. Yeah. And the biggest surprise, this one I did a lot of deliberating about. There was not many that sprung off the board, but it did. This one didn't spring that far off the board, but was the biggest one out of the teams. And it was Mercedes. And it's not. And the surprise is, to be honest, not in a good way. I won't be surprised if they drop. If I would have them replacing, have Ferrari and Mercedes swap, and have Ferrari in P2 and then Mercedes in P3, or maybe they drop down to the league of McLaren and Aston Martin, or they're in their own league, to be honest. But I don't. I get the feeling. The Mercedes, I don't think they'll be as quick as what probably everyone would think, to be honest. I might be wrong, but that's what I think, in my opinion, pretty much. So So those are my predictions, and this video is going for about almost an hour and 20. I'm going to wrap this up now because I need to get ready for work currently, and also watch a bit of and get ready to watch some F1 practice. But anyways, like this video. Share this to anybody who's a Max Verstappen fan, or a Max Verstappen fan, or a Lewis Hamilton fan, or an Oscar Piastri fan like me, yeah, or McLaren fan, in any ways. Please share this to anybody that shares to them. Comment down below who have you got to win the 2024 Formula 1 World Championship. Do you think Max Verstappen will win it again? Or do you think it'll be someone, or do you think boldly predict that someone else is going to win it again? I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And lastly, somewhere down there, click on the big red button which is labelled subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll see you all later.